Hey there. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking to somebody who has a wealth of experience when it comes to Amazon advertising, Elizabeth Greene. Uh, you might have seen her on YouTube or on LinkedIn, where she's very active. I've seen her on podcasts. Liz is everywhere. And then also, we formed a bit more of a personal connection through a mastermind that we're both in. So, Liz, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm stoked.
Yeah. We like to start off this kind of conversation by asking a little bit about your zone of genius or your specialty. What would you say that is for you?
Definitely seeing as I run an Amazon ads agency. It definitely Amazon ads for sure is like the core bread and butter. Although ads touch multiple facets in an account, and so I've had to kind of understand multiple facets of business. But as sort of we've grown as an agency and I've grown a little bit more out of some of the day-to-day work, not all of it. I've really grown into sort of marrying advertising with what we call like business strategy. So I think that there's advertising strategy of like, oh, what can I do to improve this account? And one of the things we do before we do any audits of an account is we'll have a conversation. And of course, there's some people who would think like, oh my gosh, I got to talk to you first. Like, you're gonna try and sell me. That's the reason. It's not actually. Well, I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, that's the sales funnel, but it's really to get an understanding of like what do you need out of your ad account? Because I can look at the exact same ad account and say, oh, okay, you're struggling with organic ranking, so therefore we need to push. You need to spend more and you need to push more in ads. Well, context is maybe the business is not really worried about top line. Maybe it's a mom and pop shop and they're fueled based on their cash flow. And to do a really aggressive push like that is not going to serve them and their business well. And so what we really try and focus on and what I've kind of this is what I think is really important in the space. And so I'm leading my team, I'm leading my team here, is to like really understand those nuances or really dig out the whys, the whats by how much from our brands so we can just make sure that we're running ads well because I talk to brands day in and day out and really what I find is like whenever there's a disconnect or someone's like, "Hey, I'm not happy with my agency," or, like I tried a VA or I tried somebody and like it just nobody could seem to do it the way I need it. It's because oftentimes what happens is the ad manager, through maybe no fault of their own, is kind of putting on blinders and they're just executing ad strategies like, "Oh, everybody wants a little ACoS." Meanwhile, rankings are plummeting and sales are plummeting and they're like, "Look, the ACoS has improved." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, my sales are down," right? So it's whenever there's like a disconnect between ad strategy and business objectives or brand owner objectives or whatever that is, I find that the brands just aren't served as well as they need to be. So really, I guess there's this really interesting marriage because it is a very people-y business. Agency is very people-y of like cold hard analytics. Like the data is the data. It says what it's going to say and then there's this very human, messy, interpersonal, emotional, like, ball of connection, and it's, like, finding a way to bring those 2 things together, and weirdly enough, I find I love both polar, like, opposites of that spectrum. And I can kind of like sit in the middle and then sort of coach the team through the analytics and say, all right, this is what the numbers are saying, and this is what we need to do based on cold hard analytics. And then also say, oh, but this is what the client is, and these are the nuances, and these are the pieces of the puzzle that we don't have that we need to clarify.
That's a very well well put way to describe what a lot of I think agency owners do. But it sounds like that's something you've really focused on. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
What are some of the most common scenarios? Like, do you find that there are some very common things like the profits and ranking, or are there other kind of opposed things that often pop up in your business?
I would say definitely it's always gonna be sales and profit. Alright, sales and profit. How do we get more sales? How do we get more profitable sales? I think if you've been in this industry, you talk to like, who doesn't want that? Any business. wants to grow top and bottom line at the same time. Like, that's the golden unicorn. If we could all figure out that, like, absolute all the way up and to the right on both ends, like, we'd all be set. Much easier said than done, as we all know. And so it's really that's I think the most thing, and I think the most common reoccurrence is probably a lack of specificity around objectives is very common. Um, and again, I don't think it's is any part of their own. Like, in a perfect world, we would all have, brands that we work with that would say, okay, I want to grow my sales, but I want to grow XYZ products. 20% year over year is acceptable. I'm willing to go up to, I know we're at a 10% total A cost. I'm willing to go up to a 15% total A cost, but as long as I'm hitting XYZ units sold, okay, we have enough excess stock for the next 30 days, and we'll be fine with replenishments as long as we don't exceed 100 units a day. Go. Wow,
Mm,
what kind of ad strategy could I build with that information? But you don't get that. The question is, um, and this is something, again, this is the messy ball of psychology that you almost have to be able to know how to walk right. And this is what I'm like actively coaching my entire team. Like, this is the conversations that need to happen, or the way in which you say things. So an example would be, I coached my team through sending an email just this morning, and I was saying, I like whenever I have to send a client email, if it's like on a team call and we're strategizing, like, oh, we got to loop the client in. I will literally pull up my email and say, okay, as I type it out, I will say, this is the reason why I use this specific wording. So an example was in a call today. We are starting up a new brand. They're having us manage another account, and so we're going through the account. Okay, so what kind of objectives do we need to understand? Um, and it's a brand new product. They're a little bit unsure of, kind of what's going on. And so I typed up, I said, what is the monthly budget for this brand? Um, and the way my account manager had put it when we were having our conversation, she was saying, do they have a monthly budget? And I said, okay, so there's a difference here. Instead of saying, do you have a monthly budget? Because then you have to think of the potential logical answer to that is, no, we don't have a monthly budget. What do you think we should do? Which again is a perfectly logical response. So I said, instead of saying, do you, I said, what is? Because then you have to say, what is, you have to think about it. So it's like, it's all these, like, humans are fascinating. It's all of this, like, interesting nuances to, so it's a lot of follow-up. Like, in terms of reoccurring, it's saying, they say, "Oh, okay, we wanna grow sales." Fantastic, absolutely, we'd love to help you grow. Cool. How much is your goal? How much do you wanna grow? Honestly, I don't know. I just wanna grow. Oh, that's cool. Okay, get it. Yeah, sometimes things are, I don't really know. Would you be happy with like a 10% growth or like 20% growth? Are you looking to double? Oh man, doubling. That sounds crazy. That's a lot of I think we'd probably be happy, like probably 10 or 20 is good. Okay, 10 or 20. Yeah, are you looking at like consistent month over month growth, or were we like benchmarking versus last year? Ah, our business is seasonal. I think we're working benchmarking against last year. Awesome. Okay, cool. Do you think you guys can support this, or would it we have it, it's a conversation. Nobody ever comes in, "Oh, this is exactly what I want," because to be honest, half the brains don't even know exactly what they want. You gotta, like, you gotta tease it out.
is the majority of that effort for you talking about, um, like, ads growth, or like you said, like, do you think you could support that growth? Are you talking then about their actual cash flow? Are you talking about their inventory? Are you talking about it all?
Yep.
How do you factor the other side of the equation?
Yeah, it's basically just understanding that the brand can support we don't get into cash flow as much. We do definitely look at profits, and we'll look at, like, inventory levels. So an example is they're like, "Hey, we wanna grow this product." Awesome. You only have inventory for the current run rate for the next 30 days. Like, do we really wanna do this? Right. So it's a lot of looking at that, because as much as we would want, for us, it's like an extra set of eyes, right? I'm not saying that our brains don't pay attention to that, but I'm saying, like, if we also pay attention to it, in a perfect world, we flag, "Hey, by the way, are you aware that this product is running out?" And they say, "Yeah, absolutely. We've sent in more products. Are on they're being shipped today and they'll be checked in, whatever." Fantastic. Great. Uh, but if they didn't know about that, then we send the email, because if they didn't know about it, then they go, "Oh my gosh, thank you for letting me know. We'll definitely get right on that." And we hope we have the former, but oftentimes it's the latter, and so we just make sure that, again, unfortunately, as much as I should not have to be in inventory management, I should not have to be in cash flow management, I should not have to be in profit analysis, we are, because ads touch all of those avenues of the business.
So, I mean, it sounds like, yeah, you really do think about your client's entire business and think about how you can have a positive impact on that business. That's really cool, especially because you're thinking about it not just from the cold hard data side, but also from the people side. When it comes to kind of thinking about this zone of genius, so to speak, like what's the unsexy truth about this entire zone of genius? Like, is there something that's just kind of like the 80/20 that no one wants to hear?
I think most times the 80/20 that nobody wants to hear is the hard conversations when the product conversion rate is not good. Or I'll give you a pro tip on client management. Um, I don't wanna say client management, that sounds so like good client relationships is if you can call out the big ugly thing before they call it the big ugly thing, that is the best. And the big sexy truth you wanna know about it is that oftentimes when you are communicating openly and with frankness, it is terrifying. The first time you do it, it's terrifying. And that might seem weird to say, especially for an account manager. Like if you're just a manager, or you're a brand manager, or somebody working in, working with a boss or someone else, um, it's to say, "Hey, this thing is not working." To say, "Hey, the conversion rates on this product really aren't working well. Hey, I know we just did a main image optimization, but honestly, it's worse." Sometimes you even drop prices, and for whatever reason, lower prices convert worse. Like, there's all these things that happen, and I have found this sort of issue with, and again, I'm actively coaching my team, so my team is kind of conditioned to not do this, but there's this often idea that, "Oh my gosh, I saw something, and so therefore I need to try and fix it before I say anything, because I don't want anybody to know, and hopefully I can fix it." And what I find is that oftentimes brand managers, ads managers are bearing a burden of guilt that, like, they don't need to bear, that is soul crushing. And so that's kind of what I've tried to, like, let's say, condition my team or shown my team is like, look, if we notice, like, what kind of, think of the client situation, right? So say total A cost spikes. Terrible, right? Um, Totally cost spikes in account, bad. We try and get a hold of it. But the client, we're actively working on it. We did the optimization, and the client emails, "Oh my gosh, totally cost, went up. What are we doing about it?" And you go, "Oh yeah, I did these optimizations, whatever." You're playing catch up. You did something, which doesn't look like you're on top of it. Versus an email that says, "Hey client, we noticed the totally cost increase. It was because XYZ happened with XYZ product. We've already applied these optimizations. We just wanted to keep you in the loop and let you know that we're on top of it." Those are the kind of emails we try and send. Sending that email to a client, "Hey, the totally cost increase," terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. I still get a little nervous when I send the email, right? But that's sort of the mirroring the personal connection with the data. It's cold hard data. This is what happened. When the cold hard data says something happened that's not fantastic, most people don't want, like, they don't want to talk about it. They just pretend it doesn't exist, hope I can fix it, and hope everything gets better. Which, again, we still should be fixing it. We still should be on top of it. But again, we need that human connection to be like, "Hey, I understand it. We got it."
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Getting in front of these kinds of things and just telling people about the work you've already done. It's one of those things where, like, if you don't know about it and nobody says anything,
Mm.
then did it even happen? And to a lot of people, the answer is no. Um, Now, I want to get a little bit more tactical for a second. When it comes to marrying like business objectives or human objectives with cold hard data, what really works the best? Like, what gets the best outcomes from like an account level perspective? What have
Mm,
you found to be most
fantastic
effective?
question. So one, we have to know the objectives specifically. Again,
Mm,
not we want to grow. We want to grow by how much, over what time period. And then you always want to know the growth and the counterbalance. So in Amazon advertising, typically the growth is total sales growth, and then the counterbalance is typically total aid costs. There might be some other things somebody might want to focus on ROAS, but you're like, okay, we need to grow. Great. If I infinitely grow, what is the opposite that can happen? So it's like a profits and sales thing, right? I want to grow both, but I need to keep an eye on both. So I say, okay, this one can grow up to this. This is my goal, but this number cannot exceed whatever or dip
yeah.
below whatever. Um, so that's what I want to know first. And then my second question, let's see, it's about 3 steps. So first one is total objectives. Then I want to know the performance of every single product because account performance is driven by product performance. So I want to know, where is every single product? What is the current performance of every single product? Because then I can say, okay, I want to grow XYZ in terms of growth. If I focus on the bottom half of the catalog that's driving like less than 1% of total sales, I don't care how much I optimize or how much I grow, I can grow that sucker like 500%. It's not going to do a dang thing. Not that we don't want to pay attention to it, but that's not where it comes from. So you want to find your biggest levers in terms of your products. And then what you want to do is you want to go down into the ad strategy, say, okay, now that I know my objectives, where I want to go, I know my biggest levers to get there. What are my biggest levers in terms of the advertising? Again, we're looking at that subsection of products. The best way to do this is say, what's working, what's not working. What's working, let's do more of it. What's not working, let's do less of it. Um, the best way that I have found to say what's working, what's not working is to look at it from a ad type, match type, kind of keyword type selection. So we built out like a master. This is part of our audits, by the way, is we'll look at everything. We say, okay, we're doing sponsored products, sponsored brands, sponsored display. Um, and then I want to say what's working, what's not working. So it's working, fantastic. Sponsor brand ads, not really working for us. Sponsor display ads. Oh, we're not even doing sponsor display. Okay, so that's something we can do. Then I want to look at the match types. So a fantastic way to say, how do I do some more of something would be, an example would say like, okay, when I look at all my match types, oh my gosh, I'm crushing it on auto. What's the one that I think with substitutes?
Mm.
That one typically targets products. Fantastic. Okay, so let me go double check. Oh yeah, I'm doing fantastic on product pages. Oh, I have 0 ASIN targeting, and I'm crushing it in my auto. That's something else. So it's like, what is working well? How do I do more of it? So more of it might be I can put more ad budget to it. More of it might be, hey, can I see if I can add some placements? More of it might be like, oh, this specific targeting is fantastic. How do I like, oh, let's add in ASIN targeting, let's add in category targeting, let's add in. So you're basically just like lay of the land, game plan, what's there, do more, do less, and then you just execute and adapt from there.
I mean, that is highly logical, and yeah, that's the perfect way to put together any kind of plan. I think that's awesome. Um, how are you kind of gathering and displaying that data? Are you using Excel? Are you using Sheets? Are you building custom, like, what are you doing to kind of, like, make this digestible? Because it sounds fantastic, but, no, it sounds like there's a lot of different data
It
sources.
is a mixture. So we have a mixture of internal tools we built. A lot of stuff, to be honest, and you're in the beginning and you're hearing that, you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds insane. Um, I would start off with sheets. Like sheets are like the precursor to any like web tool, ad tool. It's so much easier to like manipulate a spreadsheet versus trying to like rearrange code. I'm not a coder, but we do have a coder on staff, and like I'm like it's ridiculous to try and like, oh yeah, you just tweak one thing in a sheet versus like massive amounts of updates. So I would say like build it scrappy in the beginning, because then you can fine tune like, oh, we like this. Oh wait, that data point was super helpful. Oh no, that's not the way we want it like displayed. And then if you wanted to, you can move on to custom tools, which we have. So we have a couple of things that we use. One of them, we do use a tool called KAPOQ. Do love it. That one we use for the analytics because they do have very robust analytics, but we still have things displayed in a way that what we want to see. So for the audit, it's much easier to build it out like it is a sheet because we have to be able to replicate it, and it's a little bit harder to get like API access for new brands. It's misusers the pull reports and stuff. But then as we move on to management, we do have like internal tools that allow us to do better, quicker analysis.
Okay. And when you're doing an audit, what are some of your favorite reports? Where are you looking? What kind of sources do
Good
you
question.
like using?
Primarily, business reports and bulk files. I like bulk files because you can get basically every single data point across an entire account. So it's going to include sponsored brands, display. Uh, we used to download like a lot more reports because we would download, like the advertised product report and this one, but bulk files basically is like an aggregate of like a ton of stuff. And you can even download those to include like search term reports as well now. So that kind of gives us like an overall snapshot. The other thing that we like to look at is over time data. So you can pull, what is it, 2 years of data in business reports. Um, you can actually, if you build a custom scraper like we did, you can actually look at lifetime inside of Ad Console and scrape your entire. Now it's a monthly view, so it's not super granular, but you can actually look at like however much history it has in there. I think it's up to 2 years, maybe even more than that. And then you can break it down by month, and then you can marry those two reports, so you basically can get an entire snap, like the entire account, which is insanely helpful because one of the things you definitely want to look at is seasonality. So, like, we'll analyze on, like, what's happening right now is we'll look at the last 30 days of data is a good time slot to be like, okay, what's happening right now? What kind of ad types would match types, all the stuff that's happening. But I also want to see like over time. So an example is you might say like, oh wow, stuff is really down because yeah, we're in Q1 and Q1 does like 10% of total sales in the entire year, and then you see like the big spike towards the end of the year. So we pull 2 years of that so we can like overlay the two, and it's kind of interesting. That gives us some interesting data because like I pulled up one account. I was like, oh, 1 year there's like a huge spike at the end, so like it's obviously highly seasonal, and yet this 1 year there was like 1 month where it kind of went crazy. I was like, wait, did you do a bunch of product launches on that? And they were like, yeah, how did you know? And I was like, seasonality.
Mm. That makes a lot of sense. Um, it's interesting that you thought to scrape to get the advertising data for like looking at month over month data.
Oh, I didn't build it.
No,
I
but
made it
it's
up. But
it's
yeah.
a really well thought out idea because that's something that every business that has a real seasonal fluctuation is constantly talking about that. So it's very interesting.
Right. But I
Um,
mean, like if 80% of your business is made during 2 months, like those 2 months are mission critical. And so if you're not positioning ads for that, if you're not even aware of that, it's huge.
yeah. And you've seen that especially with newer sellers. Every January, like, where did my sales go? That
Yeah.
I'll pop onto Reddit just for a quick count of how many people post that every January.
Yeah.
It's always a good time. Um, okay, so we've been talking a lot about your specialty, and honestly, it's been fascinating to hear what you've had to say. Do you have any hot takes or truth bombs when it comes to kind of the marriage between data and business objectives?
Mm. I guess my hot take, maybe not necessarily a hot take, but maybe a pro tip is that your you can actually calculate your total ACoS by multiplying your ACoS times what we call ad sale percentage, which is your ad sales divided by total sales. So like what percentage of your total sales is made up from ads. The higher your ad sale percentage, meaning the greater percentage of your total sales are coming from ads, the greater your total ACoS is going to be, hence typically the lower your profitability. So really what ads needs to do is ACoS is a measure of ad efficiency. and ad sale percentage is a measure of market share. And so really a lot of times it's a different way to go about thinking about lowering total A costs. I don't know if it's necessarily different, but there's a lot of brands where like the first lever that they'll think of is like, oh, total A cost is high, must cut ad spend. Um, which a lot of ways that is true. Like that is typically the action that must happen. But the thing in which we would look at is what is the balance of the ratios between the two? Because if the ad sale percentage is high, say that's like 80%, then it's like, well, it might be a market share problem. Unless you're dealing with massive amounts of what do they call it? Like cannibalization or a lot of like brand defense strategies. The only way I've really seen that happen, by the way, is if you have like a really strong, really high like brand search in your account. That might be a potential case. But other than that particular scenario, we found like 9 times out of 10, it's a market share issue. And there, if you're pulling back on ads, you already have limited market share. You're just going to tank the account. So really, there is an absolute scenario in which you can run at a higher A cost and yet be more profitable. And the difference that we've found is it's about market share. So if you can make sure that your market share is strong, and so it's almost like balancing those three levers to see like, okay, is it an ad efficiency problem? Is it a market share problem? Um, and then just making sure that those are moved. And this is where a lot of our forecasting comes in, by the way, because we do a fair amount of that. Um, it's to say, like, okay, if this is what my A cost is and I really can't bring it down because of the cost per click, what does my ad sale percentage, what does my market share need to be to still hit my objectives? And if you find that that
Mm.
market share needs to be at like ad sale percentage of like 20% to make it work, it's like, maybe that's not possible. But then if you run the math and you say, oh, I need to be like at a 50%, that's totally achievable. Then there's a scenario in which I can make this work. So it's just trying to understand, again, the balance between those two, um,
Mhm.
that we found super helpful.
So you brought up an interesting point. If somebody said to you today, I want to grow my market share, but I want to keep my A cost the same or tacos the same, what are some of those levers you're going to be pulling? Like, where are you going from there?
Mm, it would depend. Um, it also depends on the size of the catalog. So, like,
Hmm.
if they had a really large catalog and I looked into it and I'm like, you have one product, so everything rises or falls by that product and that product struggling, that's harder. If you look at the catalog and you say, well, you have like these 5 major products that have like massive inefficiencies, like,
Yeah.
and there's probably some work we can do here. So that gives you a little bit more, it's all about options, really. It's like
Mhm.
how many options do you have? If there's a larger account, you have more options. If it's a category that has a ton of long tail search that has, decent volume, you have more options. If it's a product where they have the ability to pull the price lever, there's more options. So it's like, that's actually what I find the hardest is like, so if a client came to me and said, I need to rank on this one specific keyword. I must rank top of search. And also, you can't increase A cost and you can't increase total A cost go. I would say, like, your options you had given me are like this big. Like, I have
Mhm.
one option, maybe. Like, it's really hard. Versus they say, hey, I want to grow sales. I want to see, like, maybe we have a point wiggle room in total A cost. I don't really care what the A cost is. My options just almost got, like, huge. So,
Mhm.
again, it's going back into that, what's working, do more, what's not working, do less, and then doing that across the entire product set. And then again, just being transparent through what we're trying. So, like, okay, we have identified this. You do really well on product pages. If we go after product pages of top ranked competitors on your main keyword, we have seen that have some residual effects on ranking. So we really think we want to test this strategy. Fantastic. Some of that strategy works, some of that strategy doesn't work, depending on what the outcome is. We already know we're like, hey, here's the logic, here's what we're testing, here's the game plan. Great. Here's the results. Let's game plan from there. And then just kind of doing that constantly. So in some accounts where there's multiple options, you have a lot to go, a lot of things that you can try. If there's very limited options, there's limited things you can try, and then when those limited things don't work, that's when it becomes very, very difficult.
I mean, that is absolutely a value packed answer. I mean, getting yourself options is the best thing you can do. And especially when you kind of went through the checklist like that. Yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do, but you have to really make a list and consider the different things that are available to you, not just say,
Yeah.
oh, we'll do this or we'll do that. It's like, well, let's think about what our options are. That's a really helpful tip. I think anyone listening to this will, if they come away from this call thinking about anything, that is one of the most powerful things you can say in a short sentence.
Yep.
Um,
A pro tip to ad managers out there, if your client says, "Hey, I need you to rank on this specific keyword," and you're like, I don't know how I could do this, like, your conversion rate kinda sucks." Um, I I would ask them the question, I would say, "Okay, cool. What's kind of the goal here?" Bring it back to goals, because a lot of times what happens in now I'm like, this is what I would coach my team. I say, "Okay, look, what happens is, like, the client saying, 'Hey, I need to rank on this keyword,' not because they're like, 'Oh my gosh, I need this keyword,' because of the results that they want from doing that." So if there's a strategy that's thrown out from a client, one, I hear a lot of dissatisfaction from potential clients that say, um I feel like I'm the only one dictating strategy. You don't wanna get in that position with clients. Not that you don't want them to help influence strategy, but that's what you're there for, so you need to own that. So you can take their suggestions, but always take it as a suggestion, and if you continuously take it, there's this weird dichotomy. I'm on a tangent now, I'll stop, but, um, if they give you a very narrow thing that you feel like, "I don't know how the heck I can achieve that." If you wanna give yourself options, figure out the results that they want from that, like, from whatever objective they've given you, and then you can give yourself options. Because 'Cause I've gone through this a lot of times with clients who are like, "Hey, we wanna rank on this one specific keyword." I'm like, "Fantastic. Cost per clicks on that are, like, $4." This is where data comes in too. You can do the math to be like, "Hey, it's $4 and we need this many clicks, so you have to spend, like, $2,000 a day on this one keyword. You wanna do that?" And they're like, "No." And you're like, "Fantastic. Let's find out other options." But if you want it's really about saying, like, "Okay, what are the results you want?" "Oh, I feel like ranking on this one keyword is going to help me hit that 10%, 15%, 20% year-over-year growth I'm looking for." Fantastic, great. Is there another way in which we can hit 20% year-over-year growth? Absolutely. Let's find out that other way, because here's why I don't think this option is good, but this is what you want. And so we have other options, because I think the most difficult thing for clients is when you tell them like, "Hey, that's not a good idea." And they go, "Great. What else can we do? Because I'm not happy with where I am. I need to get here." But a lot of times it's on the ad manager to like piece that out.
that makes perfect sense. I mean, that is a really, really thoughtful way to put or a solution to a very common problem that a lot of ad managers face. That's really a good way to approach it. Um, and as we kind of wrap up here, the one thing I was wondering is like, you've already shared some hot takes that honestly I think or maybe not that hot only because they're so based in logic, you know? And I love that. But I guess, do you have a parting message tonight? Is there anything you kind of want to share with the audience as we kind of close up here?
Like, well, I get one parting message. Um,
You can have three.
no, no, no. I'm trying to think of what would be most helpful given our current conversation. Um, I would say the one thing I would say is that throughout this whole thing, you've heard this woven me talking about communication and communicating well and doing things, oh, you got to piece this out, you got to understand this. And there's a lot of nuance to human interaction that again just has to be like certain ways of saying things or phrasing things that can be feel difficult. The one thing I would say is that the good news is that communication is a skill. And I have been doing this agency thing for 8 years. I've been doing, obviously, communicating as a human being for a lot longer than that. And I was not always great at communication. In fact, I was horrible. I cringe at the emails that, like, my first emails I wrote, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, right? And so the good news is that it can be learned, and what I will say is that it is a skill well worth learning. Because regardless of industry, if you're an Amazon Ads manager, if you are a sales manager, heck, anyone, the communication is a skill that you will continue to perfect for the rest of your life and will make you the most valuable person in any organization, no matter where you are. Because again, until the robots take over, we're going to be communicating with humans. And so I would highly recommend treat it as a skill. Don't beat yourself up. Um, treat it treat every conversation, treat every email as like an exercise, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's a really thoughtful way to put that, communication is what separates us from AI, and that's the big lever that we get to pull as humans is we get to direct the AI as it becomes more and more prevalent in our everyday life and just direct resources in general.
Mm.
So, yeah, really thoughtful answer. Thank you for that. If people want to learn more about you and your company or anything else, where can they find you?
Yeah, definitely. So if you're listening in, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I need help with my ads, please help." More than happy for you to reach out to us on our website, would be the best place. Jungler.com, JUNGLR.com. You can get in touch with me. We'll take a look at your ads. I promise you I'm not gonna hard sell you. Our goal is an ad audit, or so you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, that is fantastic. I love it. Please do it for me. I don't wanna have to bother." But either way, we'll give it to you for free. We won't hard sell you, and hopefully we add value.
That's awesome. Well, look, thanks everyone for tuning in, and until next time.